Five Flames, Lord Ryusuke Shiba's origin story. Chapter 1. The Shogun of Takobake. Before he was a god, before he was a monster, Ryusuke Shiba was a man, flesh and blood, pride and pain. A shogun, not by birthright, but by blade. The land of Takobake was once a kingdom in name only. It sprawled like a corpse across the central mountain basin, bled dry by feuding daimyo, forgotten shrines, and ash-choked rice fields. Bandits ruled its roads, and merchants paid twice in silver and blood to pass from one warlord's land to the next. The people prayed, not for peace, but for quiet. Into that silence rode Shiba. He was young then, barely 30, and already soaked in 10 years of war. The son of a farmer, he had risen not from nobility, but from necessity. The legend said he killed his first samurai with a farming sickle, then took the man's sword and never returned to the fields. What mattered more was this. By the time the warring council noticed him, he had already conquered 3 provinces. He did not fight for glory, nor for ideals. He fought to end fighting. Shiba believed in control, in structure, in the virtue of obedience. His soldiers were not drunkards or zealots. They were machines of flesh, trained in silence and sword. Where others razed cities, he spared the temples. Where others paraded severed heads, he rebuilt aqueducts. His court was quiet, his laws ruthless, his rule fair. And when the old shogun died, dissolved by a dozen blades from his own sons, Shiba marched into the capital and claimed the mantle without ceremony. No parade, no coronation, just a decree nailed to the charred palace gates. There will be no more war. In that decade, the people of Takobake prospered. The rivers ran clear. Banditry withered. The old daimyos bent the knee or disappeared. The monks returned to their sanctuaries. Trade flowed. The soldiers, though grim, stood proud. But peace does not sit well with ambition. And Shiba, stern, unsmiling, remote, had made more enemies in stillness than he ever had in war. It was not his enemies who changed him. It was his failure. It came in the winter of his 15th year as shogun, when rebellion rose from the last 7 lords who still dreamed of sovereignty. They called themselves the 7 Thrones, and under a false banner of restoration, they forged a pact of betrayal. Together, their armies surrounded Shiba's vanguard in the valley of Imazu no Tani. It was a massacre. Thousands died in a single day. The 7 brought foreign mercenaries and monks with forbidden scrolls, spells that set the sky on fire, powders that cracked the minds of his best generals. The traitors expected him to flee. Instead, Shiba stayed. He held the line at the center of the valley, fighting with a broken sword and a shattered leg. When the final order was given to retreat, he refused to leave. His guards carried him into the mountains, half dead, unconscious, and gasping for breath. The 7 believed he had perished in the snows. He had not. The tale of Tomita Naganuma, the flame beneath the seal. The girl who would burn a god was born beneath the lacquered roof of a shrine her people had tended for generations. Tomita Naganuma came into the world on a night when the stars refused to show their faces. The wind howled through the pines like the cries of mourning women, and the midwife's flame would not stay lit. Her father, Sadao, a giant of a man, and former sumo-turned-shrine guardian, paced the garden in silence, not in fear of the birth, but in fear of what might be born. Tomita's bloodline carried more than honor. It carried power, the kind the old scrolls warned against, the kind the monks refused to name. Her mother died in labor, and when the child opened her eyes, the midwife fell to her knees, whispering, "She sees the flame." Within the hour, Sadao carried the infant into the mountains and begged the hermit priest of the upper shrine to do what had to be done. The old man agreed, with tears in his eyes. The rite took 3 days. By the end, Tomita's power was sealed, a dormant inferno buried beneath bone and soul, bound in sutras, inked with ash and sweat. She would grow up normal, or so her father prayed. For a time, she did. Tomita learned to sweep the stone steps and feed the crows who came each morning to speak with her in clicks and whispers. She played beneath the maples, practiced poetry, and walked in her mother's robes. But the other children would not touch her. She saw things in mirrors that were not her reflection. And some nights, her breath steamed with heat, even in summer. She didn't mind the loneliness. Not really. She had her father. She had the shrine. She had the fireflies who danced for her alone. Until the day the sky cracked open. It began with a messenger, a man dressed in fine robes, bearing the crest of the kingdom of Takobake. He bowed deeply before Sadao and spoke words like oil, respectful, rehearsed, false. He bore a summons. The regional lord wished to meet Tomita. A young girl of noble blood and spiritual purity should be blessed, not hidden. So said the letter. Sadao's jaw clenched. He gave no answer. The soldiers came before dawn, not samurai, something else. Their armor shimmered like oil on water. Their eyes were too calm, and they walked in perfect silence. They did not speak, their blades parting flesh with ritual grace. Tomita watched from the altar steps, frozen as her neighbors screamed and fell. The trees caught fire. She saw her father fight. She saw him fall. Then the seal broke. It was not like opening a door. It was like the sky inverting. The air grew dense and began to sing. Her skin burned from the inside, and her bones vibrated with song. The shrine exploded, but Tomita did not burn. The flames danced around her, spiraling upward like a crown. She rose from the scorched altar, and her voice, when it came, was not her own. She does not remember what she said, only that the soldiers screamed as if their souls were being peeled, and their bodies collapsed like puppets with the strings severed. And then, silence. Not peace, not stillness, just the absence of everything, except him. Lord Ryusuke Shiba did not stand among the dead. He was never there physically, but she felt him, his presence watching from beyond the veil, a presence like pressure on the inside of her skull, cold fingers along her spine. He did not speak, but she heard him. "You are one of the 5, the flame, the vessel. I see you." She collapsed. When she woke, the village was gone. Only ash remained, and in the distance, a fortress had appeared where no building had stood before, its spires black, its windows bleeding purple light. A shape meant for her to fear, and yet familiar, as if it had always been there waiting for her. She buried what little remained of her father beneath the scorched roots of the old maple. She did not weep. There were no tears in her anymore, only heat. The fire had not left her. It stirred beneath her skin, waiting for command. Tomita did not yet know what Shiba wanted, but she knew he believed she had a part to play in his twisted prophecy. When 5 become 1, the head becomes a god. She would not play his role. She would write her own with fire.